Games constantly promise freedom. Your choices matter has become kind of like a moniker or a tagline, but most players end up asking, did I actually choose anything? Now, perhaps that choice is not something that you say explicitly, but it may be something that you're thinking about internally. You play a game, and what you will see often is that you have the illusion of player choice. You're able to make certain decisions and influence the course of certain actions, but the destination always seems to be the same. It seems to be static or predetermined. There are branching directions, branching roads, but they all converge at the same place, I would argue. Branching dialogue doesn't necessarily mean branching outcomes. Many choices change how something happens, not what specifically happens. There are two specific things that comes to mind when I think about this. You can have mechanical choice where there are different rewards, different stats, different elements of the game that can be acquired based on decisions or things that you've done or things you've decided upon in the game. And then there are emotional choices. Whereas if you kill that person or you kill this NPC, or if this thing happens, how would that make the player feel? Or would you let it continue the story without this person? I think these two things also feed into the illusion of choice. And you can see this reflective in a game like Infamous. Infamous 2 is my all-time favorite game. And it's known for the karma system. The more bad things you do, the more bad decisions you make. It changes the color of your powers. Of Cole McGrath's electricity. It's the same thing in Infamous Second Son with Delson. It changes how his abilities look aesthetically. It changes his personality, his demeanor, his appearance. And that is both mechanical and emotional because you're deciding what kind of person in the game you want to be, what kind of beliefs you want to exude and seemingly subscribe to. And all of these things, unbeknownst to you, are working in tandem to give you the illusion that you actually have a choice. But why do designers, developers, why do these people seem to limit choice? And the argument can always be made for the almighty green that they're doing this for profit's sake. But I think specifically that the reasoning and the intention could be far more deeper depending on who is making the game or what the game is about. So for instance, if they want you to subscribe to a particular belief, or they want you to realize a certain theme that the game is trying to get you to comprehend, then it may limit your choice so that you arrive at that predetermined outcome and destination so that you can hopefully potentially come to the same conclusion of something of which the developers themselves have come to. So for example, let's say a developer is, I don't know, let's say a developer wants a war or something. In their game that they could create a game that's based in, let's say, a war-torn country or a country on the brink of war, and the actions you make in that game or the decisions that you abide by and the policies you adhere to while you're in the game and all these other things, all of that is kind of like a funnel leading you to the climax essentially, or the ending of that story where a war could take place or something bad could be encroaching and potentially happen. And that could be pure hearsay and pure happenstance, or just by pure design. That's just the way they want it. Or it could be because it's set up that way based on the personal biases and grievances of that developer. The truth of the matter is you never really know as a player. You're just a consumer. You're just playing the game. And I think that's why, just a side note, I think that's why player critiques and criticisms are fair generally. That's why we need that. But at the same time, you would never really know what the developer's true intentions are. And I don't think any of them hold any malice or malintent or anything like that at all. This is just pure conjecture and speculation. See, what developers do is they weaponize agency. I spoke about this in my last video. Go check that one out. But that video was based upon what actually defines a video game, what makes a game a game. And one of the elements that I listed that comprises a video game is player agency. The player being able to do what they want, control the player how they want, and go about that game in whatever way which they please. And it's the same thing when it comes to this particular topic. The game uses player agency and decision making of the gamer as a feeling, something that you can resonate with, and that's something that will stick with you long after you're done with the gaming session. They use it as a sort of illusion of authorship. Like, okay, I decided this in the game. So that illusion of choice feeds into your brain and creates a sense of authorship where you're essentially writing your own story, your own version of that game that has already been developed and has a predetermined outcome. You're feeling responsible. That feeling of responsibility is far more powerful than actually being responsible, if that makes sense. And what's even more ironic is player complicity. We comply, we play the game, and we go about it even though we know that these choices and these things are not necessarily in our control. We're playing a game that was already outlined and designed by another party, by somebody else who we don't know personally, who we don't know, as I referred to earlier, who we don't know what their intentions are, but we still buy these things and we still playing because there's a form of entertainment. It's an art form. It's something we all love to do, something we all love to play. And I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. It makes you wonder, like, why continue and why proceed even when you know that the outcome is fixed? Because choosing to proceed and carry on, that's still a choice that you're making. The game doesn't ask you, what will you do? It more so asks, why did you keep going? Why did you keep playing? Let's use that infamous game that I referenced earlier, Infamous 2. I knew that if I were to continue down a good path, which I did in 99% of my playthroughs, I think I only did like one bad playthrough where Cole was a bad guy and the lightning was red and he had all the marks and disfiguration over him. I only had one playthrough like that, but just using the good profile as an example, I knew that it would lead to me potentially doing something of great service and great sacrifice for the betterment of other people. I knew that I would eventually be looked at as someone who isn't a degenerate or someone who isn't a bane upon Numeray, the town that Cole is in that game, and I went about it anyway. Now, would it be far more compelling to talk about the dark side of things? Yes, but the good side is the same thing. It's the same bottom line and underlying theme that we have that illusion of choice, and that illusion of choice, despite us knowing it may lead to a potentially fixed outcome, we still go about it anyway. And I think that just kind of speaks to just how things are now. And regardless of outside influences or even our own personal thoughts, we still seem to just see things through, even if we know it's going to end to this particular place in this juncture. Now, we all can relate to this. When you play Elden Ring, there's like, what, 5, 6 different endings that you can have. I always would just go for the ordinary ending. I think it's called is it the Golden Order ending or whatever? Or you can get the Dark Moon ending with Ronnie, where you put the ring on her finger and you promise to be Ronnie's consort and help her in her journey and her progression into becoming, I think she wants to become an outer god or something. It's something like that. But you have all these different outcomes, and even though you know it won't matter at the end of the day, the game is still going to conclude, it's still going to end at some point after the credits roll. Elden Ring is still going to take you back to the moment before you did that, so you can still continue to play the game and continue to fight optional bosses and continue to wrap up things that you haven't done. Yet I still made that choice. And just looking back at it and just having a degree of introspection, I don't think that's a bad thing, or it's not bad at all. But I just think the psychology behind that type of stuff is so deep that people aren't even aware or care to be aware of that, or even know that what you're doing literally has no consequence in the grand scheme of things. And it just goes to show, I think, how immaterial certain things can be, and it being immaterial seems to have no sway over our capability or intention to make that decision anyway. We're still going to do it. We're still going to jump. Like, oh, this ending won't change this ending won't change that. You'll still arrive at the same place. But it's like, I have the illusion of player choice and player agency. I'm going to make this choice anyway and arrive at this ending, even though the aftermath will essentially be the same. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This little brain teaser here today, just to offer some deep analytical thought. I'm Harlem. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. P.S. I think my next video will probably revolve around the power of silence in video games and how developers utilize that and the implications of that and what that could potentially mean. And I think I'll also try to relate it to certain concepts in society that we know today. Maybe things like male loneliness and what silence in a video game has to do with that, or how silence in general can feed into that. So just stay tuned for that. I'll potentially bridge it to more relatable topics and bring it all full circle in terms of a video game application. So I'll see you.